Today I want to talk about something that's a little bit different. It's about how you can use ratings to find your selections, but in a slightly different way to normal. So usually when you look at a horse race, you've got lots of numbers that are just kind of scrolling down. There's pages of numbers. It's really confusing and you're kind of wondering, what the hell am I going to do with all this information? So one of the ways that you can process this information, distill it down into just that handful of important data that you need to be able to find your selections, is stop using the raw ratings. And by that I mean stop using the number that you just see. So let's say you've got a horse which is rated 100, a horse that's rated 90, a horse that's rated 60, a horse that's rated 50, and a horse that's rated 40, for argument's sake. 100, 90, 60, 50, 40. You've got all these ratings. And what does the difference between these ratings actually mean? Unless you know how that rating is calculated or you've used it a lot, it can be difficult. And I mean, like, not just difficult, nigh on impossible to actually understand what the difference between 190 is, or what the difference between 60 and 50 is, or 60 and 40. Yeah, we know it's 10, but what does 10 mean? What is that number? What is that? It's something's been plucked out of the ether, but understanding what that number actually means in terms of the race is something totally different, something that's really quite difficult. And that's normally where most people struggle with horse race ratings, because they've got these numbers and they just look at them, but they don't really truly understand what it means from the piece of paper that the number is written on back to the racetrack, and how that's likely to affect a horse's performance, or how it's likely to show in a horse's performance. So rather than just look at this raw number, we can try and distill it backwards a little bit, to give ourselves that little bit extra edge, that little bit of extra information. So how are we going to distill it backwards? Well, we're going to distill it backwards by using something I call diff-TP. Now, diff-TP stands for difference from top. And it's very simple. It's just the difference from the top rated horse. So if the top rated horse has a score of 100, then the difference between the top rated horse's score and that horse's score is 0, because it's the same horse. So let's do an easier example. So if the second best horse in the race is 90, has a rating of 90, and the top rated horse in the race has a rating of 100, then the difference from top for the second best horse in the race would be 10, because there's a 10-point difference between the second best horse and the top rated horse. So we see a 10. Now I hope that's clear. It takes a little bit to get your mind around how that works, but it's quite simply, we take the horse's rating and we subtract it from the top rated horse's rating, and that number that's left is the difference from top, or the diff-TP. So it's probably about this point where you're thinking, well, that's great, what the heck am I supposed to do with that? So here's why that piece of information is so important, or why that piece of information can help you analyze a race much quicker, much faster, even if you don't know what those ratings mean. It's because we can then look for the break points. So if we do this with all of the horses in the race, if we calculate the difference from top of that rating, you're going to see break points. And what I mean by a break point is you're going to see a point, if you put them all in a list, going from the best to the worst horse, you're going to see a point where there is suddenly a jump, a big jump, between two horses' scores. And it's much easier to see that jump if you look at the diff-TP, or the difference from top, because it becomes very clear. You might have 0 for the top rated, and then 10, 10, 15, and then a 30. Bang, there's your break point. There's a huge gap between this horse and the next horse. By working it that way, you can see them almost as lines across the form. In fact, you can draw a line, get a pen, get a piece of paper and draw that line, draw it straight across the newspaper, the form card, if you're at the track, whatever you're looking at, just draw that line straight across it. If you're using a computer, then write it down maybe, or visualize it. If you are using the Race Advisor Pro members software, then you're all good, because we've got the diff TP ratings in there, so you can just simply click on the horse and see it immediately. But whatever you're doing, mark those breakpoints, and those breakpoints indicate a big jump down in ability. And that's why they're important. It might come after the first horse, the best horse. It might come after the 7th best horse, or somewhere in between. Doesn't matter. Draw that line. And that line gives you an indication of the contenders in the race for that rating. You don't need to know how the rating works. You don't need to know how it's scored. It will give you that break point. All the horses above that break point are potential contenders. Now, sometimes you will get 2 contenders. So sometimes you'll get 2 breakpoint lines, and that means that you've kind of got 2 stories. It's a bit like a tower block. You've got 2 stories. You've got the first one, and everything above that becomes a contender. And then if there's another clear breakpoint further down, everything above that becomes a possible threat. So they're not as strong as the top break line, but they are still stronger than the bottom ones. So you've got the threats and the contenders. Most often you're only going to get 1 break point in a rating, but sometimes you may get 2. Very occasionally I've seen 3, but it's very, very rare, so that's very unlikely to happen. So 1 is the most common, and then 2 for a rating. So you can do this with any rating. Obviously, I think that the Race Advisor ratings are the best ones, but you can do this with any rating. You can do it at the racetrack, you can do it on a form card, you can do it on paper. You don't need a computer necessarily for this. You just need to calculate the difference from top. And so to run through that calculation again, we take the horse's rating and we subtract it from the top rated horse in the race. And that gives us the difference from top. So you can do that. You can do that using the calculator on your phone. I mean, it's that quick. Just bang, 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 bang on the phone. Write down that number next to them on the race card. Draw that line. Here are your contenders. Now, you may be left with more than 1 selection. That's fine. You might be left with 2, 3, 4, even 5 or 6. So you've got 2 options here. If you're left with 1, 2, 3, maybe that's fine. Maybe you Dutch, each way, place, 80-20 bets, whatever. Possibly looking further. I always recommend that you look in a little bit further. However, if you're left with, say, 6, 7, 8 runners in the race, you've got 2 options. You can either move on from that race, which is the safest option. If you haven't got time to do any further analysis, just move on. Don't worry about it. Just move on. If you do have time to do further analysis, maybe you repeat this process with more than 1 rating. Do it with a 2nd rating, a 3rd rating, even a 4th or 5th rating, and see if the breakpoints are in the same place. And now see which horses are in the contender section for all of your ratings, and those are going to be some of the strongest horses in the race. So that's a really good way of narrowing it down. If you've got a lot, use more than 1 rating to do it with. Just find that breakpoint for your 2nd rating, find the breakpoint for the 3rd rating. They're all likely to be slightly different, and then the horses that fall in all of them, in all of those categories as contenders, they're all above that breakpoint. Those horses are likely to be the strongest horses in the race. So that's how we can use diff TP, or difference from top. It's a neat little trick. You can use it anywhere. Obviously, if you use it with RA Pro, we already have all of our ratings calculated as diff TP, as well as the raw scores, so you can just pull them straight up on your race card. Now, if you've got any questions about the diff TP, or difference from top, or how we can use this, then please do head over to raceadvisor.co.uk, jump in the forum, leave us a message, or open the chat and chat to us. Leave us a support ticket. However you want to get in touch, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear if you implemented this, how you've implemented it, and how well it's working for you. I'd love to hear your success stories. And if you've got any questions on how to use it, or how you might be able to implement it within your own strategy, then please do come over, leave me a message. I'd love to hear from you and get back to you. So thank you very much for watching and for listening, and I will look forward to seeing you in my next video. And bye for now.